Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Vicky Godfrey with us. She's CEO and founder at DNAPaul.me, live from Ibiza, and she's originally from the UK. Obsessed with her health as much as I am, so we'll geek out on what she does, her startups as well. She was an ex producer as well, so has been on TV in various outlets. This podcast is presented to you by podfire.com. If you want to start or scale your podcast, monetize it, you can go to podfire.com. Vicky, welcome to the pod. Tell me a
Hi.
bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm Vicky. I am a registered clinical nutritional therapist who specialises in cancer and nutrigenomics. I trained at Birkbeck University for a year, studying with a biochemist for cancer because I knew cancer was already becoming 1 in 2. And that's been fascinating. But the nutrigenomics is the thing that really sets me alight because it's true personalised health. And one size doesn't fit all. Somebody might follow a diet that their best friend has just read a book on, and they try the diet and buy the book, and then it doesn't work for them. And this is because we're all completely unique and our genes are all different. And then previous to that, I was a TV producer for many years, working at the BBC, launching things like Walking with Dinosaurs, Glastonbury Interactive with all the main stages. And then I had my own production company where we won 12 awards in 6 years for cutting edge stuff. We did the first virtual reality in London back in 2010. We had to buy the headsets in America. They were £10,000 each. And I did holograms. So I did the first Frank Sinatra for Simon Cowell's 50th birthday party. You know who Simon Cowell is, yeah, on X Factor. Did his 50th birthday party. And then Tupac came out just after. And I was like, no, we were the first. We did Frank Sinatra, but we didn't get the same PR. And then I did Dusty Springfield for the West End, where I brought Dusty Springfield back to life for a whole theatre experience. So I've always been kind of wanting, I don't know, naturally always attracted to what's next, like what's the new thing, the cutting edge. So when I qualified at the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and then I did cancer study, the nutrigenomics, I was like, this is the future of personalised health. This is where we need to be. I was stood in a supermarket. And I'd just done a DNA test myself. And even though I was trained in it, I was completely overwhelmed by the results. And I stood in the vegetable aisle going, I just want to know what to eat for my own DNA. And that's when DNA Pal popped into my head. And I was like, I've got the name. And a girl that I studied biomedicine with and biochemistry with called Kate Scott, she was going headlong into nutrigenomics. And so I phoned her in Tesco's, which is a supermarket in the UK. And I said, I'm in the vegetable aisle. Let's build an app that just tells us what to eat, what to do for our own DNA. And she went, I'm in. And I said, I've got the name. I want us to become the pal to everybody's DNA and trust us. And also, we were seeing a lot of companies set up to sell DNA. And we don't agree with that. We don't treat anyone else's DNA the same way we don't want our own DNA to be treated. So the other thing was like, let's create a safe space, an ethical space where people can come to us, trust us, and their DNA is destroyed after the reports are done, because the reports are so valuable. They really are to your health. But, you know, having your DNA sold on to the highest bidder, where, you know, who knows where you could end up in the future.
And what about making sense of that data internally with an AI? So anonymizing like all these DNA sample, but having an AI do some research to improve humanity as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's got. I think that the future is bright, and I think there is so much potential for that. But I think we still have to be careful. Because also, whatever we're feeding into AI, as much as it can be our friend now, we don't know where this is going to lead to. I don't know if you've watched some of the Google AI, head of Google AI podcast with Stephen Bartlett, where they talk about, you know, AI becoming sentient and how powerful AI can be. So, yes, but I say that with trepidation, because of, you know, AI is amazing, but where is AI going to end up in? What are we going to see in 40, 50 years time? But essentially, to have AI to go over all of that data and really bring that research together, I think would be a fantastic tool.
Right, and the value is there for first customers, right? Like I see from a price point, you're sort of similar to 23 and me and such companies. It's so important for customers to know their data before they ingest any type of food, right? Because there's superfoods out there, but a superfood might mess up your gut and might not be compatible to your DNA. So tell us about like the value that you provide to customers and suggestions slash yeah, like advice that you give your clients once they have the DNA test done.
So we don't sell DNA. First of all, the cheap DNA companies that don't even cover their lab costs are planning to sell your DNA, because how can you run a company at loss when your lab costs are however much and you're selling your DNA kit cheaper than what your lab costs? And obviously we know all the different labs. We know the labs in Europe, we know the labs in the UK, so we know all the pricing. And when we see these advertised at very, very cheap, that's an alarm bell, because they've got people working for them. They've still got to pay their staff, haven't they? So that's alarm bell one if it's too cheap. We've tried to price middle of the road, like you said. You've mentioned 23andMe, who also have sold some data to GlaxoSmithKline. And we tried to find a fair price point, but the value we add, like the other thing we're seeing pop up a lot are small panels. So people are charging like 60, 70 pounds, for example, and they're giving you 5 genes. Or I've seen a recent one that's just gone viral on the thing, and they're charging £1,100 or dollars, sorry, $1,100. And again, they're looking at 5 genes. And I'm like, you know, that's not the full picture. What we do is we give you the full picture. We give you diet. We give you your methylation pathways. We give you sleep. We give you fitness, the best way to train and the best way to recover from training. We give you the vitamins. We just got recently voted by BBC Good Food as the best for vitamins and supplements advice based on your genetics. We also build in the genetic research. So if you're a bit geeky and you do want to geek out, you can go into the app and see all the research that we've based our advice on. Because the other thing I've seen popping up, as I work as a registered clinical nutritionist and a naturopath, I sometimes get people say, Vicky, I've gone and bought this DNA test. Can you interpret it for me? Because I don't know how to. And I'll get to a piece in their genetics and I'll go, hold on, I've never seen this research before. So I'll go off and look for it. And it's a study done on 8 people. I mean, like, come on, that you should not be using research that is just one study in 8 people. Ours is all verified. We have a team of nutrigenomic professors based in Switzerland. They're British, but they just live in Switzerland, and they go through and verify and validate all of our research and make sure that there's at least however many papers are all saying the same thing before we would even consider putting that in. We're 100% evidence-based. We're also, our testing is 99.9% accurate. It goes through the machine 3 times to check that there are no anomalies. And then you also said, what else could I share with you? Do you want me to share some genes that we cover?
Yeah, genes, you share diet. Like if I do my test as a man, also I can have my testosterone levels, which is really important. And I guess I can make active change. So is there like an app on the back end that gives you live recommendations?
Yes, so we've made the app really dynamic. So we do cover testosterone. So we have a female health report and a male health report. On the female, it very much covers estrogen and your estrogen detox pathways and which estrogen your body prefers to make. There are 3 different types our body can make. One is more dangerous and would give you a higher risk of perhaps a hormone-driven cancer like ovarian cancer or breast cancer. Now, we can use epigenetics to turn this on or off. Okay, so epigenetics, I like to describe it for layman's as a light switch, turn on and off. Or if a gene is too fast, we can slow it down. Or if a gene is too slow, we can speed it up, all using diet, lifestyle, and supplements. I mean, how fab is that, the human body? That is pretty special. And then from a testosterone point of view, I do a lot of work with prostate cancer because I am trained in cancer. And in the genes, we can see whether the body likes to convert the testosterone into a more dangerous form of testosterone called DHT. And then that will push up your risk of prostate enlargement. And then later on, if you're not doing all the right things, you know, could lead to, say, prostate cancer. Again, we never want to plant things in people's minds because the power of the mind is amazing, because we know placebo works, and we don't want anyone to manifest anything. So the way we guide them through is, you know, like, this could be a risk factor, not you are going to get this. We say this could be a risk factor, but in this situation, if you take saw palmetto, zinc, nettle tea, and lycopene, which is really good for the prostate, which is abundant in tomatoes, all of that will help turn those genes off and stop the conversion of the DHT, the more dangerous form of testosterone, to a more nicer form of testosterone that you want your body to produce. So from that thing, the epigenetics, I find absolutely amazing. Now, in the app that we've developed, we take 2 data sets. So your DNA, when you get your flat DNA report from a DNA company, it's just like, this is your gene. But half of them don't give you advice what to do. They just say, oh, you've got the MTHFR. And then you're like, well, what does that even mean? We put all the advice in. What that means is that you don't methylate very well and that you require an increased need of folate. What does folate mean? It means green leafy veg. Or you can supplement with a B9 folate or a methylfolate, which means that folic acid, you can't do the conversion of folic acid across to folate. Therefore, do not take any folic acid. But that's your flat DNA report. But what we do in the app is we also do a 21 question consult. So if you was my client today, Charles, I would say to you, do you poo often? Do you, how often do you exercise? How much alcohol do you drink? How much water do you drink? Because that gives me an idea of where you are now with your own health. We take those 2 data sets. So we take your epigenetics, which you've just answered in the 21 questions, and we merge them with your DNA to give you truly personalized advice. What's wonderful is in a woman's life, for example, we have fertility, we have perimenopause, we have menopause, and we have postmenopause. All of those different stages for a woman have different requirements of food, lifestyle, supplements to take. And the app fully takes that on board. So if you know, we want the POW part of the app to be your POW for life and guide you through your different life stages. Say for a man, it might be stress. It might be that you've lost your job, or you've gone bankrupt, or lost your home, or you're going through a divorce. All those life stages and circumstances that can happen to people, again, you can answer those questions and go back into the app, re-answer all of those questions when your life has changed. And then it will give you more personalized advice based on your circumstances of what is going on around, because we're merging the 2 data sets together, which is really, really powerful in terms of giving people truly personalized advice on what to do for their health.
Right. And what are your thoughts of companies like Viome that started with the gut for tests? Because let's say that you prescribe me more amino acids, but let's say my stomach cannot digest this and sort of rejects the food I'm giving it, the vitamin B won't be metabolized. So what do you think about these companies and gut tests?
I love them. I've only just seen Viome for the first time last week. A client popped up with one of those tests and said, oh, could you help me interpret them? There was some great stuff in there. There was also a little bit of stuff where they didn't justify. So they gave some advice and I was like, but they haven't justified why they've given that advice. And then I tried to go back into the stool test to look at why. I had to use my biochemistry knowledge and my knowledge of gut health to build a picture together, which is quite hard for the normal layman to do. But I thought it was fantastic. I love microbiome testing. I love stool testing because it tells us so much about the gut. Now, in a DNA test that we take, that we look at the FUT2 gene. Now, for example, that might say to you, you're more likely to get IBS, or you're more likely to get Candida, or you're more likely to have bifidobacteria, the good bacteria in your gut. But it doesn't tell you that you actually have. So combining these tests together to see how much good bacteria you've got in your gut, or looking at your stool, whether you've got inflammation or you've got gut dysbiosis, or pancreatic elastase is that weak, you know, and so on, is another level of information. So I always say that the DNA is like the baseline. It's the roadmap to how your body works. Then all these other additional testing really tells you where you are now. So another gene that I like to talk about is the one about the B12. If you can't absorb B12 through the gut, if your intrinsic factor doesn't work very well. Now, some of the advice is just go and get B12 injections. Well, I don't say that. What I say to a client is go to your doctor, get your B12 tested. Let's actually look at your real levels, because here we're saying you can't absorb from a genetic perspective very well because your intrinsic factor is a bit sluggish. And if the B12 levels come back low, which generally they do, then we say go to patches or injections. And again, we try and be budget friendly. Not everyone can afford B12 injections, but patches are much more achievable in people's budgets. And again, it's the same with vitamin D. If your vitamin D receptors don't work, which mine don't, mine are dreadful. I've got really high impact vitamin D, is the VDR gene. And every summer, after a summer of sun, September, October, I go and get myself a routine bloods. And after being suntanned and healthy and swimming in the sea, I'm vitamin D deficient. And I'm like, what? And then I spend all winter really focusing on supplementing at high dosage. And then I go and get tested again in March. And so I'm constantly looking at my levels to understand. I don't just supplement for the sake of it. You can't beat real food. Your body loves real food. It's more bioavailable. But there is a time and a place for supplements when the levels are low. There is a time and a place for therapeutic dosaging. But I don't just say to people, right, now you're going to be on these supplements forever. It's, you know, the body loves food. So do what you can with food first, and then, you know, get your levels up using supplements to the correct level, then keep an eye on them and do these extra testing to check that what you've done has worked.
Right. The margin seems pretty high in the DNA testing, but I don't like the fact that you lose on these margins by shipping, right? Shipping is always complicated. My first business was a nootropic business, and just shipping the supplements was sort of a headache. So I think if I get into that business, I would send some hardware to the client. For example, for stool testing, well, it would be like something you put on your toilet, right? Could analyze the bloods from menstruation, or it could analyze saliva if you spit in it, right? And then it would likely to give us real-time data. What would you think of such a business? Would it be profitable? Would it be complicated? What are your thoughts on that?
I would worry about the accuracy. You're leaving it in the hand of a non-trained layman. Do you know what I mean? So you might spend, like, I know, for instance, that the machine that we use for the genetic testing has cost millions and millions and millions. Okay. So suddenly we're now trying to take this thing to the household. So what would the quality be? I'm not saying that this isn't achievable in the next 20, 40, 50 years, but in the next 10 years, for example, I would be concerned about, has the person put the thing on their toilet correctly? Is the back end or the components? What if somebody's dropped it? Does it work correctly? You know, there's so many anomalies. When you're in a lab, you're in a clinical setting. Everyone's washed their hands. Everyone's in their white coats. Everything's in a controlled environment. If you're suddenly doing more and more home testing at that level with these things that have been developed, it's more about the accuracy and about how somebody has treated them. And what if they've dropped it on the floor and then one component doesn't work and they give them a completely wrong result because one component stopped working? It's not that would worry me, not being in the controlled environment of knowing the full accuracy.
Right. Yeah, I'm more optimistic. I think AI could remove like outlying data, and also they could have like technicians to install the thing. There could be like a perfect UX onboarding, but it would cost a lot to build such a company, right? Like with your phone app, you could take pictures, and there could be an AI that could see if you installed it well or not.
I think,
But
yeah, I think if you've got things
why
like that.
why isn't Apple building this, for example? Like,
Sorry, why isn't Apple building it? Did
yeah,
you say?
yeah, such a device,
I
like, I
don't know.
mean,
I don't know. It's the honest answer. I've seen in the UK, come back to genetics. I have seen a smaller device that so our testing takes 2.5 weeks in a machine that goes through three times. And I've seen these little pop-up little machines come in, and they're doing them on the fly, DNA testing on the fly. But the people, the consumers that I've spoken to that have tried this, don't trust the results. And the panels are really small. It's like 4 genes that they look at. So I get what you're saying. And I think if you're doing photos and you're bringing in AI and you're bringing in some sort of questionnaire, how do you feel? Because nobody can beat how you feel. Like, I don't say to everyone, just go and have a stool test. I say to people, right, you're having digestive problems, you're constipated, you've got acid reflux, let's do a stool test and let's look at what's going on in there. So again, I think it's like we don't want to get you don't want to turn people into hypochondriacs. I've had clients that are like that they're I've got to do this test, I've got to do that test, I've got to do this test, I've got to do that test. And you know what? They've stopped feeling into themselves because they're so reliant on the outside data. It's like, but what about us? Us as human beings are so multidimensional and we're such amazing things. What about what's going on inside? Like, why do we know we've had not a very good night's sleep? Why do we need a ring to tell us that we've had a bad night's sleep? Well, we know because I went to the toilet 4 times. Okay, it is nice to see the data that you went into a deep sleep and that you wasn't in REM the whole time, of course. But I think for some people that may face addiction problems, for example, that get addicted to things, might get addicted to the data. And then that can confuse them, that can overwhelm them. I get a lot of clients that turn up and they're on 37 different supplements. And I say, well, what happened here? How did you get on 37 different supplements? Well, I read a book and then I did this test and then I listened to a podcast and it sounded like me. And then I did this and that. And then you're peeling it back and you're going, right, well, hold on. How do you feel? Are you having regular bowel movements? Do you have sausage-like bowels? Have you got energy? How's your hair? Is it falling out or is it thin? What are your nails doing? So I like going back to some old school, like Chinese medicine, what's your tongue saying? Is your digestive system working? What are the bags saying under your eyes? Which represent your kidneys and your liver. And like for myself, just to share, I'm going into perimenopause now. About a couple of years ago, my periods changed. My menstrual cycle went from a 28-day to a 21-day. What a shocker that was. I was like, oh my God. But every time I go and get a blood test done, it says I'm not in perimenopause. It says I'm not in menopause at all. I am totally normal. Everything is normal. But I know physically that my cycle has completely changed. It's coming every 3 weeks instead of every 4 weeks, So sometimes the data isn't showing you actually what is going on. So I think there's a few things to take on board, but I think you start with the human. You start with how do you feel in your skin, and how do you feel in your skin, and then what do you want to investigate, and then go investigate that thing. If your tummy hurts all the time, then yes, you should go and investigate that. If your back is hurting, yes, do go and get an MRI and just check what's going on with the spine, or go to Pilates and tone up your core so you can support your spine to stay in the right thing. So I think there's a balance there, Charles, that needs to be balance, because we are amazing as human beings and our bodies are so amazing, and I truly believe they can heal from anything given the right circumstances and the right environment.
Love that. Yeah, good advice right there, Vicky. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
Oh, www.dnapal.me, M-E, because we wanted the me because it's about you. It is about you. So we chose that as the last part. So dnapal.me.